The hero of our story, Hans, was a very experienced farmer. He knew everything there was to know about his work. However, when Hans discovered strange eggs in his cornfield, he couldn't identify which animal they belonged to. He felt a strange sense of unease. Later, when he saw what hatched from those eggs, he did something that left his wife and children bewildered. Hans lived on the farm with his wife Bonnie and their 2 daughters, Mary and Giselle. The family grew vegetables and kept sheep, chickens, and pigs. Both parents and children loved the quiet country life. One early morning, Hans came into the kitchen and heard a strange noise coming from outside. It was still dark and he couldn't see anything through the window. Hans had never heard such a noise before, which made him a bit anxious. To make matters worse, Bonnie suddenly walked into the kitchen, startling him. He wanted to go outside to investigate the noise, but his daughters came downstairs, so he decided to have breakfast first. Afterward, Hans went to feed the animals. He had almost forgotten about the strange noise, but the chickens, which he fed first, were acting unusually agitated, making him nervous again. Soon, he noticed rather large holes in the chicken coop. Perhaps a fox had tried to get to the birds during the night. Understanding why the chickens were unsettled, Hans patched up all the holes in the coop and then went to feed the pigs. They were already screaming with hunger, but had they ever asked for food so loudly? He fed the animals and they quieted down, but something still felt off. Hans sensed that something very strange was happening, but he couldn't find a clear explanation for his unease. Then, that strange noise sounded again, this time from the fields. Confused, Hans headed for the tractor to drive to his cornfield. But he didn't even have time to start the engine before he heard his younger daughter Mary scream. Hans got out of the tractor and saw a small, weak kitten nearby. He had almost run over it. The kitten seemed frightened or even attacked by something. Hans took the kitten home and asked his wife to take care of it. Yes, it was indeed a strange day. Hans decided not to give in to his anxiety and to stop thinking about the strange events. He wanted to get back to work, but he didn't get the chance because his older daughter Giselle's loud cries came from the field. Taking Mary with him, Hans immediately drove the tractor to the field. Within minutes, when he reached Giselle, he saw her pointing at some mysterious spheres in the field. Looking closer, he realized these were the eggs of some unknown animal. There were 10 of them in total. Hans decided it was best to crush the eggs with the tractor. They seemed too strange to him and caused him anxiety, but his daughters begged him not to do it as someone was about to hatch from the eggs. The girls even cried. In the end, Mary and Giselle persuaded their father to leave the eggs alone. By then, Bonnie had also arrived at the field. Seeing the eggs, she even screamed, thinking they belonged to a snake. But Hans reassured her that they probably belonged to some familiar bird. He just needed to remember which one. However, he couldn't remember, and again he felt that inexplicable anxiety. Mary and Giselle, delighted that their father didn't destroy the eggs, brought some hay from the barn to serve as a warm blanket. The girls eagerly awaited the hatching. Finally, the moment came when the girls joyfully called their parents. The adults approached their daughters. A crack had appeared on one of the eggs. After a while, the shell began to break and soon a tiny bird emerged. Hans, looking closely at the chick, suddenly burst into tears, which no one expected. Bonnie, bewildered, hugged her husband and tried to comfort him. The girls watching everything were also confused. But soon Bonnie realized that a peacock chick had hatched, which explained everything. Hans had told her that as a child, he had also lived on a farm. He loved taking care of peacocks. He even had his own peacock, which he considered a pet. That peacock had been his best friend. After the bird died, Hans never cared for peacocks again. Of course, he couldn't hold back his tears when a tiny peacock hatched right before his eyes. Hans considered it a real miracle and decided to keep a few peacocks on the farm, much to Mary and Giselle's delight. The rest of the peacocks, the couple decided to give to a sanctuary where the birds would receive all the care they needed. See you soon!